G'day, it's Wayne again from the Aussie Bloke. Okay, this is the second part video regarding my battles with mental health, anxiety, and dealing with stress overload. So my last video touched on how I'd found out from my doctor that I had extremely high blood pressure. My cholesterol was extremely high. Wasn't really dealing with stress very well at all. And as you might recall, I definitely have lived in this environment through running my own personal business for so many years previous to this, and it's been a slow build-up. So stress was doing the damage. I just wasn't aware of it, or I ignored the signs, let's say. So, all right, I got this information. I had to go back for a checkup. I started doing little things, improve my health by eating better, trying to be less stressed, but I had no hope of that. But in my mind, I'd convinced myself I'd done it, and I was getting back into exercise. So, I'd lost a bit of weight. I was starting to feel good again. But that's the thing about stress. You can convince yourself that you've got it under control and things are getting better. And it kind of feels like it is, but it's actually not. So in my case, it wasn't. It was still wreaking havoc on my health. Again, I just wasn't aware. And when I had my crash, if I'm being honest, it wasn't a major event. You would think that, if you're going to have a breakdown, you're going to fall apart, that'd be something massive. It'd be some big event that triggered it and you just fell to pieces. But that wasn't the case at all. In fact, it was nothing. I can't even remember exactly what it was. It was a normal day. I was dealing with some clients, some changes on a big annual report. I mean, annual report season it's definitely a little bit more stressful than normal, but I didn't feel any different. And it was a normal work day, doing my thing. I went into the kitchen to make a coffee, and that was it. Bang. I don't recall sitting down or falling down in the kitchen. I don't remember how long that was, but I kind of came to. I didn't faint or anything, but just my memory around it was kind of like this. I came to, or became aware, that I was just sobbing. I was crying uncontrollably. I was sitting on the kitchen floor, leaning up against one of the cupboards. I looked up and I saw my beautiful wife leaning over me, and she looked really concerned, very upset. And she said, "Wayne, what on earth is wrong?" And I just looked at her and I couldn't even voice what was going on. Nothing computed. I was just emotionally drained. I actually felt numb, and she reached out her hand, I grabbed it, she helped me get up and then embraced me, and we had this hug. And it was kind of like, I just felt immediate comfort. I just felt like I was safe. So I always refer to my wife as my rock, and she has been, and that's one of the reasons why. She's been there when I've been at my lowest. Anyway, that point was probably the lowest point in my life, but I knew that I was going to be okay. And I've said so many times that it was the best thing that happened to me. So, and it was, and it still is, even though I still refer to it as the lowest point in my life. I see it as my rebirth. How I came out of that and how I addressed the situation. Oh man, it just changed me forever. But that connection, that point where I was just, inconsolable, I was like numb for about 2 or 3 days. I was bloody useless. I was just laying in bed, just a wreck. I was just just a husk of a man. It was terrible. But while I was doing that, my wife made an appointment to go see my doctor, family doctor, then referred me to a psych. I didn't go to the psych. While I was laying in bed and sort of getting over and trying to get myself together again, I was just scrolling through YouTube, just looking. I don't know what I was looking for, to be honest. I was just looking for something that would hopefully lead to something that would make me feel better or give me that bit of hope. Now, I had the love and support of my family and my kids, and that was so cool. I didn't tell anyone what was going on. You know, it's a bloke thing. I probably should have, but you just don't. I'm of that era that you kind of keep it into yourselves. And fellas, I tell you, these traits we pick up, the stuff that we carry with us, they can really hurt us. And in hindsight, I wish I did speak to someone, but hey, I didn't. And I found a piece of music, and it was from a Buddhist monk named Thich Nhat Hanh, and he was singing, I think it was called the Bell Tower Chime or something. It was something, for me, it was miraculous. It was a tune, it was a vibration, it was a tone of music and his voice that just resonated with me, and it became my lifeline. I started listening to it in the morning when I woke up. I listened to it when I knocked off during the day. I listened to it before I went to sleep, and it was a comforting thing for me. And everyone's different, but for me, it just resonated. And from there, I started following a lot of, Buddhist monks and listening to them talk and preach. And I wasn't going to become a Buddhist, but what I got was the whole thing about being present and living in the now. And I tell you, that's one of the things that I lost going through all this stress and years. I was getting disconnected, as I said, from my family without knowing it, and from myself, from my very soul. I was just losing who I was. And I wasn't living in the now. I wasn't appreciating the very, very basic things around me. A smile, a laughter, the birds singing, the leaves rustling in the wind, just the really basic, simple stuff that should bring all of us happiness and peace and calm. And so I started rebuilding myself from that point, and it made a massive difference to me. I read a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and it was about a Wall Street trader who had become a Buddhist monk, and one of the last things he got rid of was his Ferrari. Really interesting story. It was recommended to me by a friend. And then about a year after that, I read another book called The Surrender Experiment. It was Michael something, can't remember his last name. But anyway, that whole idea of surrendering to things that you can't control. Again, this is all part of my journey. The fact that I was trying to control too much and stressing and getting anxiety and the stress building because I was trying to do everything and I just couldn't. And I created those habits. And while all that was happening, I was oblivious to what was about to happen. So I had my fall, I had my crash, but I was almost immediately in a place of rebirth. I was willing to accept it because I could see that I was just on the wrong path. So yeah, I slowly started rebuilding myself. I started meditation. I started spending time just breathing. I started spending time just walking outdoors, out in the bush with my wife, my family, with my dogs, and just appreciating the simple things around me, and started seeing again with new eyes. I started seeing true color. I started feeling very differently about things, and that really was the thing, I believe, that saved me and got me back into this space now. But the journey wasn't ending there. There was a lot still to learn, so I found out. I thought I knew it all. I thought I'd come to a place where I'd gotten my shit together and everything was going swimmingly well. But something else from this period came back to bite me on the ass about 10 years later. And on my next video, I'll tell you what that was and how I'm now tackling that. And if you're a bloke out there and maybe you've got a parent who's adopted, or you may be adopted yourself, sometimes finding out things about your true family tree and what you're connected to can be a bit of an eye-opener, especially around health and things that are passed down through family members that can come back to bite us. So stay tuned. I'll come back to you soon and let you know what the next stage of that journey is. But before I sign off, I just want to say this. You need good people around you. You need people who care. And you have to appreciate them. Make sure you appreciate your loved ones and your partners, and don't take them for granted. because they're the ones that, excuse me, they're the ones that can help you and save you and bring you back from a bad place. Anyway, sorry. Cheers, I'll speak soon. Bye.